Good evening here in New York. I'm Joshua Walker at Japan Society. Ohayo gozaimasu to all of you joining from Tokyo. I'm excited about today's conversation where we're going to be talking about women in tech, Japanese and international trailblazers. We have an amazing panel today that I can't wait to hand this over to because I'm going to be learning just like all of you from these trailblazers. But I first want to just say a special word of thanks to our business and policy supporters, our global leaders, Citi and Deloitte, our corporate partners, Mizuho Financial Group and Toyota Motor of North America, and then of course our Talks Plus season sponsor, Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group. So there's many outstanding women at the forefront of technology fields like artificial intelligence and virtual reality. And we're really excited to be able to welcome some of them here tonight for our panel that is really unique in terms of capturing the mood, the zeitgeist, as they say, about the role that women are playing here. They're going to be talking about not just the technology side, but also their careers and give words of advice, not just for women, but for all of us that are looking to excel in this critical space for the world ahead of us. And I can't think of a better moderator tonight than my good friend Catherine Kobayashi. She's a news anchor and reporter for NHK World Japan. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Kobayashi. Catherine, let me kick it over to you. Thank you so much for moderating tonight.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua Walker. So honored to be here, and welcome all to Japan Society's Women in Tech, Japanese and International Trailblazers. I'm excited to shine a spotlight on some outstanding women today. These ladies, of course, are pioneers in industries and leading the way in hot, disruptive technology from virtual reality to artificial intelligence. Let me introduce our fantastic guests with whom I have an honor of sharing this Zoom room with. I'm going to go in the order I see them on my screen. Dr. Noriko Arai, if you can raise your hand. Yes, is the director of the Todai Robot Project, which created an AI that scored in the top 20% on Japanese university entrance exams. The AI exceeded the cutoff score for several well-known colleges. Thank you so much, Dr. Arai, for joining us today. Next we have Ms. Yuka Kojima. She is the co-founder and CEO of FOVE Incorporated. She invented the world's first virtual reality headset that can track eye movements. This technology allows for an unprecedented, accurate, and realistic experience. Hello there, welcome, Ms. Kojima.
Hello.
Hello, and we have Ms. Sara Hooker. Thank you for joining us. She is at the forefront of artificial intelligence research at Google Brain, focusing on deep learning. In 2014, Ms. Hooker founded Delta Analytics. It's a nonprofit dedicated to building technical capacity to help communities around the world use machine learning for good. Welcome, Ms. Hooker. And Amber Noy is also with us to help us with translations. Ms. Noy has translated several programs for the Talks Plus department. Thank you very much for helping us out tonight. And well, it's morning in Japan. Welcome, everyone. And during this panel discussion, these fabulous ladies will share their experiences, offer advice, and take questions from the audience at the end of the session. I really feel so happy to be here. I was looking forward to it. I can't wait to not only learn about these new evolving technologies, but to also hear their personal stories about how they became successful in the tech field, which is traditionally underrepresented by women. So for those of us, I'd like to begin by asking this. There are some of us here that may not be experts in tech. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about the technologies that we just discussed. Let's start with the basics though. In your words, Dr. Arai, what is AI?
Okay, anyway, I'm so proud to be here. I feel so honored to be here. Thank you. And I think the terminology AI is a little bit misleading because everybody assumes that it has to have the intelligence. But I would say that AI is a technology that approximate meaning by algorithms and or statistics from the viewpoint of mathematician. Any intelligent creature conveys meaning through some signals or a string of symbols. Bee, dance, gorilla, drums, and we human beings use words. Unfortunately, computer only accept string of symbols as it is and computes without understanding what it means. Hence, the challenge for AI technology is how well it approximates meaning without understanding a thing. Okay?
I see. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Arai. How about you, Ms. Kojima?
そうですね、バーチャルリア、まず、今日ここに来れてすごい嬉しいです。ありがとうございます。そうですね、バーチャルリアリティがどういうものかというと、物理的な制約という概念を全く新しくしてくれるもので、こう移動とか空間っていうものがある種自分の自由自在にできる世界ですね。例えば、コロナでずっと家にいなければいけないっていう時でも、その時 VR ヘッドセットすごく売れたんですけど、その家にいながらにして、グランドキャニオンで瞑想したりとか、あとは一歩も家から外に出なくても世界中の人と同じミーティングルームでヘッドセットをかぶるだけで一緒にミーティングしたりとか、そういうふうに今まで当たり前だったどこか人に会うためには移動しなければいけないとか、何か旅行するためには飛行機に乗らなければいけないとか、そういう物理的な制約を飛び越える新しい、世界っていう感じですね。
All right. So, Ms. Kojima, you described what virtual reality is for us. Ms. Noy, would you please translate?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. Basically, VR is a new tool for reimagining the way we experience life physically. It's a way to oscillate between movement and space in a new flexible way that we've never done before. And especially in COVID times, as we all know, during stay-at-home times, VR headsets have sold exponentially, increased in great amounts. And it's made it possible for us to meditate at the Grand Canyon as we stay at home and work from home in meeting rooms such as this. And it's a great way to, it's a new world for movement and for space, for not taking for granted these two aspects.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hooker, how about you? In your words, what is AI?
Wow. So firstly, thank you. It's so nice to be here. And it's lovely to meet all the other accomplished women on this panel. I feel like some aspects have already been touched upon. I mean, the idea of AI has meant different things at different times. So when we first started talking about AI in the 1950s, we really anchored it to humans. So can we impart to humans the skills that we as humans, impart to machines the skills that we as humans have? The way that we speak, the way that we're able to extract patterns from the world. But increasingly, at least what motivates my work, is can we just teach machines to model the world in a useful way? So not even imitating us, but perhaps augmenting the way that we do things and extracting things that we can't see because perhaps our eyesight is not strong enough or it's log scales. So we only see things that are quite big changes in our environment. Can we use machines to extract small changes that are much more relevant, for example, in medical X-ray images, where you have to take advantage of small pixel-wise differences? And that's very exciting because that opens up a whole new range of possibilities about how we can augment our own intelligence.
All right, and we're going to go back to Dr. Arai. Dr. Arai, you created an AI that scored in the top 20%, as we mentioned earlier, on Japanese university entrance exams. How is that possible? Dr. Arai, I believe your microphone is muted right now. If you could kindly, thank you.
Okay, so am I on?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, so we developed different types of AI targeting each subject. Huge amount of data of English as a second language tests from China and deep learning technology did a great job in English. It scored 185 out of 200 in English tests. Technology similar to Watson by IBM worked fairly nicely in history. In contrast, we needed a happy mix of good old-fashioned AI in 1980s or even in 70s probably in the textbook. And latest natural language processing technologies to attack notoriously difficult math problems in Todai. Yes. So we needed different types of approaches, not just one. So Todai Robot is not just one AI, but different types of AI and collected. Yes.
What are some of the challenges that you faced when developing that technology?
Well, the most difficult one was mathematics, because the current the tide of AI is like big data and statistics and the deep learning and the thing, but it doesn't work very well for mathematics really. So for mathematics, we needed to dig the good old-fashioned AI, and we did a lot of work to make it work with the latest neural networks and stuff. Yes. Yeah, it was a big challenge. Yes. But it did very well.
It sounds like quite a feat. What was the purpose, I'm curious, of developing this?
Okay. Our team was aware that the third wave of AI was coming very soon in 2010. So it's like 10 years ago. And we were convinced that the source would be the US tech giants like Google, but not academia or Japanese companies. As professionals in this field, we knew that AI did not understand any meaning. So it would keep making stupid mistakes sometimes. But at the same time, we were interested in how well big data and deep learning technology would approximate human intelligence and how and when it would fail. Tech giants rely on advertising revenue through their social network services. They desperately need AI technologies for their reason, for their business model. But Japanese companies like Toyota and Panasonic may need different strategies on this issue. In other words, I started this project to frankly show the amateurs both the possibilities and the limit of current AI technologies so that we Japanese do not over or underestimate them. So it is kind of like, social science communication project, yes.
You said that AI made some stupid mistakes. What were they? What's an example of a stupid mistake?
Okay, so when you use a Google Translate, if you want to translate, push the buttons up and down and left and right, it will translate greatly. It's perfect. But if you want to translate, push the buttons in the following order: up, down, 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 up, down, 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 left, 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 right, left, or something like that, then it is screwed up.
I see, it gets confused.
Yeah, it is confused and make very stupid mistakes. But it's really, understandable for us because it's this, same vocabulary, and we cannot understand the difference between the two things. But since the AI uses statistics, so press the button up, down, 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 left, 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 right, left, left, up, down. Such kind of a string of the code is so, how to say, unnatural, scarcely seen things. So then the machines may confused. Yeah, may be confused. Okay. Yes.
Well, before we go to, go ahead.
Yeah, so probably Sara knows why it makes such kind of stupid mistakes better than me, because she's a good, technologist. So,
Ms. Hooker, did you want to answer that? Why does AI sometimes make, quote, stupid mistakes?
I mean, I actually think Dr. Arai gave a very good description. I mean, our models that we currently have are very complex, but they are frequency counters largely in simple terms, meaning that if an event is presented to our models, a lot of times they get quite good at recognizing that event. But if an event has never been presented to the model, if it's a new combination, then the model sometimes dives off a cliff. So for example, if I train my model on only sunny days, and then all of a sudden I present the model without training on it, but at test time on a rainy day, often there's unexpected model behavior because a lot of these models depend upon being shown large quantities of data, which is what Dr. Arai is talking about. This difficulty of when you have very different subject matter or different types of data sets, like math, for example, you need to think more about what representation is being learned. So that's another interesting challenge. We've done very well at things like image and things like audio, but having a good representation is much more important where we don't know good extraction techniques yet. So I think you did a fantastic job, Dr. Arai, already covering a lot of the bases.
Thank you. And Dr. Arai, just one more thing. What are some examples of how this technology you speak of can be used in other areas?
Actually, none. To be frank with you, no, because we did it for social science communication, to tell the Japanese people what these technologies are, and because they assume that the AI, this time AI is more like human beings, they say it has intelligence, so they misunderstood so badly in 2013, 14, something like that, and they invested wrongly. So our project was mainly for social science communication project, and also we did it for fun. So yeah, that's it.
That's great. Thank you. Ms. Kojima, you mentioned earlier a little bit about VR, virtual reality. You invented the first VR headset with eye tracking technology. What is that eye tracking technology?
視線追跡とは何ですかっていう質問です。はい。
わかりました。アイトラッキングはですね、ユーザーの目の動きを赤外線カメラで捉えて、バーチャルリアリティの3次元の空間を自由に操作する、そういったテクノロジーです。ですね。はい。
So it's about controlling the environment that you see in the VR based on the movement tracked, the eye movement that's tracked.
And how does FOVE's eye tracking technology make the VR experience better?
もともと私、漫画とかゲームとか映画とかがすごく好きな、オタクで、いかに物語の世界のキャラクターとアイコンタクトができるかっていうところに興味があって、今までの例えば映画とかゲームとかって、登場人物と自分がコミュニケーションする方法ってほとんどなくて、目が合うこともできないし、笑い合ったりとか、とにかくノンバーバルコミュニケーションがゼロだなって思ってたんですね。それでバーチャルリアリティの空間でも最近アバターを使って、映画でもアバターってあったんですけど、CG モデルになって、自分がモデル同士でコミュニケーションしたりするんですけど、やっぱりそこには表情があまりついていなくて、それをどうやったらリアルタイムで私たちがこうやって目を合わせたりとか笑い合ったりできるのかって考えたときにアイトラッキングを作ろうと思ったんですね。今それがようやくVR の世界でもでき始めてるって感じです。
Originally, I come from a background where I'm actually an otaku, so I love manga and movie and anime and games, and I was very involved in that culture, and I always dreamed of having eye contact with such characters, and obviously until now communication with such characters is impossible, like just laughing or as we're doing right now having eye contact or any kind of nonverbal communication was very difficult or impossible. But now with VR and with CG avatar models, it's basically the incentive of creating this eye tracking movement was to make that possible, which it is now in VR.
What were some of the challenges you faced during development?
そうですね。技術的な問題と、あとそれからチームビルディング的な問題の2つがありまして、デベロップメントそのものに対して言えば、やっぱりハードウェアを作るっていうのは、ソフトウェアを作るベンチャーとよりも少し経済的な難易度が高くてですね、やっぱり物があるので、例えばデッドストックになる部品を買い占めたりしなければいけなかったりとか、ソフトウェアであれば、そういう部品を買い占めたり、在庫を持ったりっていう、ものに縛られるってことは少ないんですけど、ハードウェアはその点、物があるので、その分、まだまだお金がかかってしまう。3D プリンターとかプロトタイピングはどんどんコストは下がってるんですけど、どうしてもマスプロダクションになってくると、数億円から10億円とか、時に数十億円みたいな単位のお金がかかってきてしまうので、そこの資金集めがやっぱり苦労する点だったというところと、あとはちょっとテクノロジーに関わらずですが、チームビルディング的なところで、日本とアメリカで2つオフィス持ってやってたので、そこでアジアンバックグラウンドのワークカルチャーと、あと欧米の特にエンジニアの個人主義と成果主義のワークカルチャーがうまく共存できなくて、なかなかそこをすり合わせるのは大変だったってところはあります。
個人主義と何主義でしたっけ？
そうですね、個人主義だと、成果主義ですかね。その時間をどれだけ働くかっていうより。
So the challenges are twofold, actually. One is just technologically speaking, the development of hardware is, the challenges of such are different than that of software because you have to buy actual, you have things, you have material that you need to purchase. And then there's a lot of that which just becomes dead stock. So you need to prepare to have that kind of investment. So that's a different aspect than software. But nowadays we do have 3D printing and prototyping. Those things have become less expensive, but when you do mass production, you inevitably have a lot of expenses that just become dead. So we did have to do like billions of dollars of expenses that financially was just very difficult. But the second fold aspect, apart from technically speaking, was team building. Because our company, we have branches in the US and in Japan. So just the work culture differences in terms of those two, in terms of the Asian work culture and the work culture of the engineers in America, the main conflict was the individualism versus so just basically time management and how people value their time versus their life.
Thank you, Ms. Noe. I'm curious, I have used a VR headset before to exercise, actually. I just tried it out. You mentioned movies and what was the other one? Games. What are some other possible applications for eye tracking technology in the future even?
Sure. 私としてもすごい驚いたことなんですけど、今、FOVE、このヘッドセットが一番使われているのは実はヘルスケアでして、もともとエンターテインメント用に作ったんですが、目の動きで、例えばアルツハイマーとか、あと PTSD とかですね、脳に関わる疾患を早く見つけることができるんですね、目の動きで。あとは酔っ払い運転の防止でロサンゼルスで使われてたりとか目って外部に露出してる脳みそだって言われていまして、だいたい目の動きを見ると脳で何が起こってるか分かるみたいなんですね。そういう形で今、例えば兵士の人が PTSD で苦しんでいて、それからそのまま、戦地に継続できるかどうかとかを、実際にFOVEが戦場に持ち込まれて、で、アイトラッキングの動きでその人のトラウマのレベルをチェックしたりとか、あとはもう脳震盪ですね、アメフトの最中に脳震盪で倒れてしまう人がどれぐらい、まずい状態なのかアイトラッキング測ったりとか、そういう、ポータブルなヘルスケアデバイスとして最近使われ始めてるっていう感じですね。
Yeah, this was something that came to a surprise to me because initially this product was created for entertainment purposes, as you mentioned, but the use of FOVE has been very great in healthcare, especially because of the aspect of being able to understand brain activity based on eye movement. So it's been used for early detection of neurological disorders and things such as treating Alzheimer's or PTSD. It's even been, the FOVE has been sent to territories where soldiers are injured, and as it's used as a portable healthcare device. It's also been used to in LA for detecting drunken driving or training of such as well. And also for American football players being able to on-site track how much the damage to the brain was, because you can see that from the eye movement.
Thank you, Ms. Kojima. Ms. Hooker, thank you for joining us. Your research is focused on deep learning, as we mentioned before, at Google Brain. Can you tell us what is that exactly?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think to put it simply, within this goal of AI, which we talked about earlier, and which Dr. Arai kindly provided a definition for, we have all these different ways of achieving it. And so one of those ways is a type of model called a deep neural network. And a deep neural network, by training it, we essentially optimize for the deep neural network to learn patterns from data. So, for example, the model may learn in a distribution of, say, what I had for lunch over the last year, that I like to eat a certain type of sandwich. And then what we would want is then it's able to generalize. So then we would ask the deep neural network, give me a recommendation of something that I would like for lunch tomorrow. The strength of deep neural networks, and perhaps why we're talking about it right now, is that deep neural networks are far better than models that have come before it on high dimensional tasks. And high dimensional tasks means things that are not just a table or a database where everything's already very structured, but something like an image or stream of images or audio. And that tends to be much more complex because there's a lot more features. And deep neural networks have been the first breakthrough in extracting meaningful representations on those type of complex data sets. And that's why everyone is very excited, because it opens up a range of applications in which we can use models in meaningful ways.
And what are some of the purposes of the research that you
Yeah.
conduct?
Excellent question. What do I do? So my research is on, now we have these models that are very high test set performance. So they're very good at predicting correctly. But as Dr. Arai said earlier, we may have unexpected mistakes. So a lot of what I work on is, how do we anticipate where a model may make mistakes? And beyond that, how do we deploy to many different resource-constrained environments? So I grew up in Africa, so a lot of the communities I grew up in were very resource-constrained. So Yuka was talking about the cost of hardware. In Africa and a lot of the communities I grew up in, your cell phone is your technological device. So a lot of what I work on is, when we deploy to resource-constrained environments, can we make these models accessible, and can we guarantee they perform in a way that we expect?
What are some of the difficulties you encounter at work with your research?
Oh, so many. I mean, it's a very complex task, because what we're asking is that we train these models, and often we deploy them to test settings that we may not have trained on. So we're expecting the models to adapt. A good example of that is my lunch example. So I trained it on the last day of lunches, but let's say in a non-COVID world, I go traveling, and when I'm traveling, I love to try new foods. And at that point, I would really like my recommendation system to still work and tell me what I can eat in a new country, but maybe because I have never been to this country before, it's never been trained on it. So how does my model tell me it's not sure, and it doesn't want to output a prediction because it's not sure? And that's actually very important, because we want our models to tell us when they're uncertain, so we don't use it in sensitive domains in which we can possibly compromise human welfare. So a lot of my work is on that. How do we tell when models are uncertain?
Interesting. Now, your research, you just explained, really benefits many people around the world. How about here in the United States or in Japan? Is there a way we can maybe in our day-to-day lives recognize your work?
Well, you probably are using some of my work. If you have a cell phone, there's a good chance that algorithms are running on it, and there's a good chance complex algorithms are running on it. A lot of my work is to make sure those algorithms work in a way that benefits those who use it. So can we ensure consistent performance in different countries for everyone? And that's exciting. It's a big challenge because in many ways, we're trying to capture many different preferences, but it's what makes it exciting.
Thank you. Well, you're all very accomplished in your fields. Would you please tell us a little bit more about your careers? For example, how you started, why you were interested in taking this career path. Dr. Arai, you're the first person on my screen, so we're going to start with you. How did you start, and why are you interested in this?
Okay, as I told, I am a mathematician. I'm not really AI person, okay? I am a mathematician, at least it used to be a mathematician. And my major was in law at undergraduate. I hated mathematics when I was at high school, really. But I became so fascinated in mathematics when I was in undergrad, and decided to change my major to mathematics and study at the University of Illinois. At the last stage of my doctoral degree, I got married and got pregnant. So I had to leave without the degree. And I spent almost 3 years as a housewife, but kept writing papers in my kitchen using Olivetti typewriter. Do you remember that they existed, the typewriters last century? And I was hired at a university in Hiroshima when I was turning to 30 years old as a mathematician in a computer science department. So law, mathematics, and computer science, 3 different types of background gave me so different viewpoints from other researchers who are interested in just one field. So transdisciplinarity, is quite important for me, to start at the unique project like the Todai Robot Project. Yes, thank you.
All right. And how about you, Ms. Kojima? Why did you start, and why are you interested in this?
もともとソニーでプレイステーションのゲームプロデューサーとして働いてたんですね。やっぱり自分のゲームが作りたくて。ただ、やっぱり大きい会社の中だと、どうしても予算規模がどんどん、一つのゲームを作る予算規模もどんどん大きくなっていて、なかなか20代の若手にゲームをディレクションするチャンスって本当に回ってこなくて、大体ゲームのディレクターになるまで10年から15年、20年、時にはディレクターになれずに退職する人もいるぐらい、それぐらいコンペティティブな世界なんですね。で、そんな中でゲームの企画コンペで一応優勝したんですけど、結局ゲームのプロジェクトが半年で潰れちゃった時があって、その時すごく悔しくて、ただ自分でもどうやったらゲームが作れるか分からなくて、それを友達のオーストラリア人の友達に愚痴ってたら、なんで自分で作らないの？自分で作ればいいじゃんと言われまして、自分で作れるんだって なってですね、自分で作り始めたのがきっかけですね。そう言ってくれたのが、私の共同創業者の CTO になりました。やっぱり楽しいこととしては、順番待ちをしなくていいというか、自分が思いついたことをその場ですぐ実行できるっていうフレキシビリティとスピードはやっぱり起業してよかったところだなって思います。
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I was very into games. So obviously I wanted to create my own games. I was working as a game producer at Sony's PlayStation, PSP. However, as the budget sizes increase over time, it just becomes harder for the younger generation who are just starting out to be able to direct a game. It becomes very difficult. And some people, stay at the company for 10 years, 15 years, even 20 years, and never end up being able to direct their own game. So it's a very competitive field. And I was telling this to my Aussie friend in Australia, and I was saying how difficult it is and how I just want to make my own game. And she was like, why don't you just do that? And I was like, oh, I just make my own game? So she eventually became my CTO at FOVE, and that's how we created this company. And it's really fun to have that kind of flexibility and just do what you want to do and not have to wait on a line, as they say, and to have that kind of speed and to have that kind of control.
And how about you, Ms. Hooker? How did you start? Why were you interested in this career path?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like a common theme is here perseverance and pursuing your passions. I grew up in Africa, so I grew up very far from any notion of computer science or artificial intelligence. In fact, my dream for most of my career growing up was to be an economist, because that's what I saw as the technical people around me. There were a lot of people from the World Bank, and that was my dream. I wanted to join the World Bank. And I got a scholarship to come to the US. And in fact, I pursued economics, and I came out to work with economists in Berkeley. And then at the weekends, I started working on projects for nonprofits, and I was doing a lot of engineering, and I was meeting a lot of different researchers, and it became very clear to me that both machine learning has this ability to model the world in a way that economics often struggles to, as well as it felt like a very useful toolkit to address the problems I wanted to work on. So I made the decision that I want to throw myself head first. And so I first joined a small startup. It was called, it's now a bigger startup. It's called Udemy. And I joined as one of their first data, at the time was data analysts. And then I transferred into the data engineering team, taught myself engineering and machine learning. And then I went on to teach. So I then taught machine learning. And then I got an offer from Google Brain, which is the pure research lab, to join and to start doing machine learning research. So I would say my path, if I could describe it, has been really driven by what problems am I interested in, and a very brute force approach. I think it takes a considerable amount of effort to pursue your dreams, but it's been very satisfying because I've always felt like I've been working on something I'm passionate about.
Well, I admire all three of you ladies for following your passions, for persevering. It's just really fantastic. Recent data, I just read this from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, suggests women make up nearly half of the total workforce. But surprisingly, that figure drops significantly to 25% in computing and math jobs. So I'd like to ask you ladies, in your opinion, what are the challenges women face in tech? Dr. Arai.
Okay, yeah, well, I today I got really impressed, with meeting Kojima-san and Sara-san, and I felt such a kind of like it's the next generation, and it's just a different world, for me. I'm in the late 50s, so when I was in mathematics and computer science, I felt always alone. I am the only one female in the event, or or anyway. So I was the only one, who was, participating in that the event. So it was so weird feeling, I'm the only one. And mathematics is a good subject because you can do all by yourself, and you can do it in kitchen even. But when you're seeing the teamwork in the especially engineering, and then the males work so long, and even they spend the weekends and at the company, like in Toyota and Honda and many other leading Japanese companies, then even if you are hired in that company when you are in early 20s, it's if you have to you have to choose either your life, your own life, or as businessman. That's not fair. but I think the trends are changing because the social network services, especially tech giants, change the everything really, because in the social network service areas, it's definite. It's apparent that the half of the users are women. So then if you do not, how to say, think about how women feeling or why women has difficulties, then you cannot make a very successful services. So you need to include females in the team, otherwise you won't win, so you won't succeed. So I think the trends are changing really in this century, but last century it was really not good.
Well, you were one of the pioneers that opened the door for many other women. What can we do to get more women in tech careers, Dr. Arai?
I think, well, still, when I am looking at how many percentage of females in the top conferences in computer science and the engineering and the artificial intelligence, probably 10%, I would say, the first authors of the those competitions in those competitions. That's really sad, but I don't think only the competition is needed. I think when we see the success of Kojima-san, the idea and the passion and there's something which others people do not think about is more important than winning in a competition. So winning in a competition is just one-dimensional thing, right? But what Kojima-san thought about was kind of were different dimensional things. So that was how Kojima-san succeeded in her area, I think. So in Japanese companies in 80s and the 90s, it's more one-dimensional, the value. But now everybody in the global how to say on this planet needs a different types of dimensions. So I think the more female will succeed in this area too. Yes, I really hope so.
Ms. Kojima, how about you? What do you think the challenges are for women in tech?
そうですね。いや、今、新井さんの話を聞いて、ゲーム業界、私が入った時でも、40人のプロデューサー部の中で女性は2人、3人だった。私はそれ少ないと思ってたんですけど、新井さんが1人だったっていう時代があったと聞いて、やっぱり新井さんたち、私たちの、10年、20年、30年上の世代の人たちはやっぱり道を開いてくれたから、今があるっていうか、まずそう感じました。
Yeah, just hearing Dr. Rai saying she was the only one, even at Sony, I was one of 2 or 3 women of a 40 person producer team. So it's kind of shocking. And I really makes me realize how much the people in the 10 or 20 or 30 years ago paved the path for us to have what we have now. So I'm really appreciative.
Kojima-san, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Were you saying something?
OK。そうですね。なぜ女性がテック業界に少ないかというと、私、ゲームが好きだったからゲーム業界に入ったんですが、当時周りを見てもゲームをやってる女の子ってすごく少なくて、で、コンピューティングとかテックに興味を持つきっかけになると思うんですね。ゲーミフィケーションとか。ただ、女性のために使われたテクノロジーとか、女性のために作られた、テクニカルなプロダクト、ゲームであったりとかソフトウェアだったりがやっぱり少ないなと思います。それは鶏卵でテック業界で働いている女性が少ないから女性目線を持ったプロダクトが作られてなくて、 で、結局、コンシューマーである私たちのところにも、男性主体のプロダクトが多いので、なかなか女性が興味を持ちづらく、テックは自分のものじゃないっていう感じになっちゃうのかなと思います。
Yeah, and as for why I think there are less women in tech, for example, it basically all just starts with interest. So I was interested in games, which is why I entered the game industry. But and gaming is kind of a gateway into having an interest in computing itself. But femtech or technology for women products is very, currently very slim, and it's kind of an egg or chicken situation. Is it because there's less ownership of the products, there are less products made, there are more products made for men, or is it that there are less men? It's really a chicken or egg situation, but basically it starts with having more products that are intended for women that have that gaze.
Ms. Hooker, what can we do to get more women in tech careers so we could have more perspectives?
It's complicated because it starts with understanding why there aren't that many women in tech careers. And the truth is, it's still very lonely. I think the further you go in your career in tech right now, there's very few women around you. I work as a research scientist at Google Brain. It's a very competitive research lab. And I think part of it is that. I think whenever we have a desirable industry or desirable profession, women end up struggling for adequate presence because for many different reasons. But I will say that what is surprising is how little has changed in 30 years. And in many ways, that speaks to the fact that it needs to not just be based upon our interests, but how we make these environments work for us. And that is also because any technical craft, whether it be designing video games or designing machine learning algorithms, requires immense effort in building that craft and an immense amount of sheer time. And so how we respect women's time and create the space for them to develop their technical crafts, it has to be both a government-driven policy about how we respect and carve out time, as well as our loved ones, our partners, our families, who create the equality of time where we have the resources to work on what we love to do. And I think that's a key pattern, is that if a field is desirable, women always have to justify more why they belong. And it becomes more and more difficult the higher you go in an organization. So we must reassess how we support women as they enter spaces, not just getting them into spaces, but making sure they succeed within spaces. That's very important. I don't believe women lack interest because there's so many women who are passionate about technology. I just think right now we make it too hard for women to prolong that interest. There's too many obstacles that women face along the way.
We already have some questions, so I want to take a couple of these that our lovely producer Ben has chosen for me. This one's from Catherine, addressed to Ms. Hooker. Do researchers such as Ms. Hooker see these models becoming applicable to e-commerce or direct-to-consumer sales online? So this probably came in before when you were speaking about your models.
So deep neural networks do have wide application, particularly when you're trying to do something. So for example, in the case of e-commerce, you may have something like a product picture, and you may want to extract features from the product picture that are not in the description. So let's say that you have, I'm thinking of a notebook, and it's in a red notebook, a blue notebook, a white notebook. If you can extract that automatically from the image and create captions, that's a good example of how deep neural networks can be used. But then there's also, I guess, implicit in your question, also recommendation systems. How do we surface products and rank successfully? And there's a lot of research which also shows great promise with deep neural networks. I will say, Dr. Arai pointed this out earlier, blending models. So not just having deep neural networks, but also having what was called in the 80s symbolic AI, but really it's domain expertise. You codify it as rules. So a domain expert will always know better in that particular use case how patterns emerge. And so often the best formulas involve having some hard-coded rules about how you, for example, treat a certain recommendation box. Maybe this recommendation box is only for products which are new on the site. and then using more general models to decide how to rank within those boxes. And that's a great example of how you combine networks for maximum effect and different types of modeling.
All right, and this question is for Ms. Kojima. In the future, would an updated FOVE be catered more towards education, training, healthcare, etc., rather than entertainment? I think you answered that question earlier, but Amber, please, sorry, go ahead.
大体わかりました。
Oh, thank you, thank you.
そうですね、イエスです。今はヘルスケアだったりとかトレーニングであったりとか、そういう方向にフォーブとしては進んでいますが、将来的には私としては映画の世界で、キャラクターがアイコンタクトができる世界を実現したいと思うので、いつかそこに戻っていきたいと思ってますし、今、VR の世界ではアバターコミュニケーションが一番ホットなので、そこでも使われていくかなとは思います。
This question is from Sahad. How can tech companies in the US and Japan help inspire and empower young women and girls to get involved in math, science, and other skills that'll broaden their interests? Let's start with Dr. Arai. How can we empower young people, young women and girls to get involved in these topics?
Pardon me, I think
that's kind of hard question because
sorry, I just have to interpret.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my bad. That's my bad. I'm sorry. Ms. Noe, please go ahead. It looks like, I thought it was me, but it looks like Ms. Noe is...
Hello? Okay, sorry, I think to Zoom. Basically...
Oh.
Okay, I'm not sure. I think it's all of us, right? It's not just me. Ms. Kojima, you were basically saying that, yes, you would use it for entertainment, but also you're going to cater it towards healthcare, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So that's all.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm going to go to that next question that I mentioned earlier. How can we inspire, empower young women to get involved in math, science, and other skills? Dr. Arai.
Okay. Well, I told about my career that I started, my career in law, actually, in the undergrad, and I hated mathematics when I was at high school. And that was okay, if you were intelligent enough, but then you can start mathematics or computer science when you were in undergrad or even in the graduate school or when you are in interset. So I believe the most important thing is that you have to read well and write well and learn well. That basic things and the skills you have, then you can change your major very easily, from one field to other fields. So you don't need to be, doing very great in mathematics or computer science when you were in high school or something like that. If you have different background, then it will be your strength to do something different from other people. See, so I'm not programming well because I'm a mathematician. So I'm not programming well, but with the help with the system engineers, great system engineers or computer scientists, we can I could lead that very unique project called Todai Robot Project. So no problem. So if you have a very the strong will to do this is needed by the society, so I have to do it, and if other boys do not do, I will do it, or something like that. If you are convinced in that, Kojima-san also like that. Kojima-san said that earlier that she was just otaku, but
Yeah,
she was so convinced and she wanted something so badly, right? So she needed a team. That's the start. So you don't need to. You don't need to care about your grade in mathematics in the junior or high school, because probably your mathematics teacher is not good enough for you. So just probably I will speak in the last session that what I'm going to do the next, that you have to read well, write well, and learn well. That's it. That's it.
Good. Thank you for your advice. Ms. Hooker, how about you? How can we empower young women to get involved?
It really, I think it comes down to a few things. I think firstly, we need to think about what is the rubric we want people to aim for. So this was brought up earlier. In fact, I think the one thing that young women and women in technology should understand is that one of the assets that we bring to our work is thinking differently. A lot of my most impactful research is research where I've seen something because of my upbringing or because of my sequence of experiences that I unified ideas in a way that perhaps my colleagues were not able to. So there are aspects to how we do our work which is intrinsically about the viewpoint that we bring. I think in tandem, we need to simply remind everyone, women and men, that building a craft, and particularly a technical craft, is a long and disciplined pursuit. You are building a series of skills to be able to develop end-to-end an understanding of how a model navigates the world. And so setting expectations that this occurs over multiple years. And in fact, in the case of Dr. Arai, since the 1980s, she's been working in this area, to the point that we also don't need everyone to do everything. So most of my colleagues are either very good at engineering, very good at theory, or very good at idea generation. And I would say you should be very strong at one and good enough at the others. So know early in your career, particularly, get technical, because it's very important early in your career to have a grasp of the technical aspects. But knowing how to unify that, or knowing what your strength is also important. Figure out where you fall and then find a team to complement you. The one last thing I'll say is this, is that particularly as you go further as a woman, you understand that increasingly you're the only person in the room who's a woman. And it becomes very important for you to have a support network of women across organizations or in similar positions where you can truly be yourself and share your experiences and feel supported. And that can be, in my case, I have a WhatsApp group with women in AI who are across different organizations and labs. And we talk about silly stuff and important stuff and meaningful stuff and sad stuff. And it's really important to have a trusted space, because it only gets more lonely as you go further in your career, unfortunately. And it's very important to have places where you can be truly yourself and share everything. And also have a support system who gives you advice as you navigate it.
Great suggestions. Ms. Kojima, how about you? How can we empower young women?
まず今日のセッションを通して新井さんとそれからさんがすごい楽しそうにお話しされるのが印象的で、やっぱり私自身やっぱり最初好きで始めたことでも経営とかやってるとだんだん辛いこともあるんですよね。そういう時にお二人が本当になんかキラキラした目で自分のテクノロジーがどんなに好きかとかどんなに素晴らしいかお話しされるのを見て、やっぱりこういう情熱が何よりも大切なんだなって思いましたね。私、心理学部出身で、実はコードも書けないし、バーチャルリアリティも自分では作れないんですよね。でも、やりたいことがあって、こういうことをやりたいってやっぱり自分パッションがあるので、そのパッションを人に伝えて、チームを自分の周りに集めることで、このヘッドセットを作ることができました。なので、さっき新井さんもメジャーはいつでも 変えられるって、それもすごい簡単だってすごい力強い言葉だなって思ったし、サラさんの言うようにこう教育の機会をもっと女性に与えるべきだって本当に賛成。その上で、たとえ自分が理系のバックグラウンドを持ってなくても、テクノロジーインダストリーで活躍することはできるっていうことを私からはお伝えしたいですね。
はい。I also just wanted to quickly mention in relation to for the question of the current VR landscape, basically just the fact that the avatar communication is so hot right now, and for the question related to education versus entertainment, and that I do hope that the eye contact with characters in movies becomes more possible with VR. But yeah, so in relation to this question, just listening to this session and Dr. Arai and Sara, and I myself, I felt kind of more distressed with the financial burdens lately. But hearing you guys talk about your projects and your eyes glistening, and it really ground to me how much passion is the most important thing. Bottom line, how much passion is key and vital. And my background is in psychology. It's actually not in coding, so I'm not necessarily, coding is not my expertise, but my role today is just to let women know and to empower women that you can be in the tech field without having the tech proper background necessarily, just having that passion, which is what I had, and to build a team around you and to communicate your dream and the direction that you want to go in and the vision that you have, and that's key.
We're out of time, but I would really like to address this question for Ms. Hooker. Adriana says, how can we aspire in this career if we have a disability of some kind? For example, visual impairment. Ms. Hooker.
I think we need you. I mean, I think that particularly right now with artificial intelligence, we need different perspectives because these models are so wide-ranging, and in fact the way that they're going to be used by different communities will vary differently. And so one of the most important things is to have perspectives which are different and see the world or don't see them or experience the world in different ways. A lot of where AI has real potential is in augmenting how we navigate and how we experience the world. And that's why it makes it extra important to have those perspectives involved. So absolutely, more reason to become involved and to engage. I always tell anyone who's embarking in working in machine learning or starting to build your craft as an engineer, focus on a problem that you know that you've experienced, because it immediately makes you both the teacher and the student. As you learn, you'll also, because it's a problem which it's personal to you and to your community or to you yourself, you can speak to it and you can speak to the impact. And it changes the dynamic of you not just being a student, but being an expert at the same time on what you're trying to solve.
Thank you very much. We've learned so much today. Thank you for your valuable insights, everyone. We're going to have to leave it there for today and hopefully continue the discussion again soon. I'd like to thank the audience for joining us and the guests for sharing their valuable insights. Thank you all. Thank you, lovely ladies. You guys are fantastic. Everyone, make sure to check Japan Society's website for more awesome events like this one, japansociety.org. And I hope we'll see you soon. So remember, follow your passions, persevere. Any other keywords that you'd like to add, lovely guests?
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you. Good. Sarah, any keywords that you'd like to add there?
Machine learning is exciting.
Great to talk with you. Yeah, that was so great.
Great.
Thank you. It was very inspiring meeting this panel. Fantastic. It's been amazing hearing about your passions.
Thank you.
Any final words, Kojima-san?
いや、もうそこで言ったことが全てで、本当にそうですね、パッションとあとは何よりもモチベーション、コミットメントが大事だと思うので応援してます。
Passion, motivation, commitment, and I'm supporting you guys. I have your support. Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for joining us today. See everyone soon.
とうございました。